Hi, my name is Calvin, and welcome to my neighborhood. If you like what you see, just hit the subscribe button. Now, let's see what I'm doing today in my neighborhood.
All right, everybody. Okay, glad you're being seated right now. That's very important. Now, everyone did their homework. You told me something about the Reconstructive era concerning civil rights. That's very important. Now, I'm wondering, can someone tell me what you learned after reading about civil rights? And just, oh, wait a minute. Adela Ray, looks like you have something to say.
Yes, I do have something to say, and I'm glad you called on me because I have something important. Now, here we go. Abubakar Baliwa was the first prime minister of Nigeria. He was assassinated on January 15th, 1966, and he's one of our heroes as we celebrate our independence. Our independence took place on October the 1st, and it was in 1960. So, I just hit that to say, because, we're talking about civil rights and important leaders.
Well, that is important about Nigerian independence. Abubakar Biliwa was the first prime minister of Nigeria. But that's not what I was referring to, Adela Ray. So I was referring to civil rights as it was in the United States. So I'm wondering, can someone tell me about civil rights in the United States? That's what I'm looking for, okay? So, Ari, do you have something that you can say or you can add?
Thank you, Mr. Antonio. And I can add something. Well, the civil rights movement was a nonviolent social and political movement and campaign from 1954 to 1968 in the United States to abolish legalized institutional racial segregation, discrimination, and disenfranchisement throughout the United States. That's all I knew about it so far. I could have told you that. I know everything about everything. So, all you gotta do, Mr. Antonio, is just ask me what the answer is, and I can tell you everything. Yeah, that's right. I can tell you everything because I'm so smart. Yeah, so just ask me a question, and that's all you have to do. Yeah, Ari's pretty smart. Calvin's pretty smart, but I'm smarter. So just ask me a question, and that's all you have to do. Just remember that. Just remember that.
Okay, Adela Ray, I will remember that, and perhaps I'll call on you for the next question I'm going to ask. Now, just getting back to the civil rights movement, the movement had its origins in the Reconstruction era during the late 19th century, although it made its largest legislative gains in the 1960s. After years of direct actions and grassroots protests, the civil rights movement or the social movement, major nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience campaigns eventually secured new protections and federal laws for civil rights of all Americans. After the Civil War, and the subsequent abolishment of slavery in the 1860s, the Reconstruction amendments to the United States granted emancipation and constitutional rights of citizenship to all African Americans, most of whom had recently been enslaved. Okay, Adela, you have another question?
Yeah, I got a question. Hey, I know there was slavery in the United States. We didn't have all of that in Nigeria. Well, sometimes. But you know what? I just want to say that because I know everything, let's see. If I can tell you what comes next after all that, um, I can't remember it. Well, I tell you what, everybody, because I'm so smart and I'm really good. I'm going to let Mr. Antonio take the lesson over from here. Take it over, Mr. Antonio.
All right, Ari, I'll take it up. Excuse me, not Ari, Delaray. I'll take it over from here. Now, for a short period of time, African American men voted and held political offices. Um, but as time went on, they were increasingly deprived of civil rights, often under the racist Jim Crow laws, and African Americans were subject to discrimination and sustained violence by white supremacists in the South. Over the following century, various efforts were made by African Americans to secure their legal and civil rights, such as the Civil Rights Movement from 1865 to 1869, and the Civil Rights Movement and from 1869 to 1954. The movements were characterized by nonviolent, massive protests and civil disobedience, highly publicized events such as the lynching of Emmett Till. But these uh, included the boycotts, such as the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Nashville, Tennessee, and marches from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama, the culmination of legal strategy pursued by African Americans. In 1954, the Supreme Court struck down many of the laws that allowed racial segregation and discrimination to be legal in the United States, and they deemed that it was unconstitutional. The Warren Court, or the Supreme Court, under Chief Justice at that time, Earl Warren, made several landmark rulings against racist discrimination, including the separate but equal doctrine, such as Brown versus the Board of Education. And that was in 1954. Hart Atlanta Motel Incorporated versus the United States in 1964, and Loving versus the state of Virginia, which banned segregation in public schools and public accommodations and struck down all laws banning interracial marriages. The rulings challenged black leaders of the movement for its cooperative attitude and adherence to legalism and nonviolence. Its leaders demanded not only legal equality, but also how can I put this, everyone? But they also demanded economic self-sufficiency for African American communities. Support for the Black Power movement came from African Americans who had seen little material improvement since the civil rights movement had peaked in the mid 1960s, and still faced discriminations in jobs, housing, education, and politics. Martin Luther King Jr. is often cited as the most visible leader of the civil rights movement. However, some scholars will say the movement was so diverse to be credited to any one person, organization, or strategy. Now, this Monday, we're going to be celebrating the legacy and the birth date of Dr. Martin Luther King. It's important for us to understand that he was a great leader of the civil rights movement. He was a pastor of a church, and he was not a politician. But he helped move the United States to a closer and closer place where we could look at each other and say we're all equal. And that's what he tried to do. And he did a real good job at it too. Okay, Adela Ray, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, Dr. Martin Luther King. Remember, I'm from Nigeria, so and we learned a little bit about him in school. But I thought he was a king. He's not a king. That's just his last name. Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Hey, I remember he gave a speech. Back in Washington D.C. in 1963 and he talked about he had a dream. Uh, oh, okay, that was just a speech. Oh, okay. But anyway, I better let you handle it, Mr. Antonio. Yeah.
Ari, you have a lot to say, and not Ari, Adela Ray, you have a lot to say. Ari, it looks like you have a question too.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm white, and I always feel whenever we talk about African American history and we talk about white people, that it's always that white people were bad. And I'm not bad. I have several friends. Some of them are Latino, some of them are African American. I live here in Harlem, and I live with everybody. Why do we have to learn that white people are bad? That's what I want to know.
That's a good question, Ari, and let me answer it right now. White people are not bad. It's just that human beings are bad. Not everybody, whether they're white, whether they're African American, or whether they're from Nigeria or the Philippines or any other place. You have bad people everywhere. Now, back in that time, what happened was there were laws that were oppressing people based on the color of their skin. And those laws were made up by some pretty bad people. But that doesn't mean that you or any white people that you see today are bad. No, this is just history. And if we learn the history of any race, we will learn that there were some good people and there are some bad people. So it's not about white people are bad because that's not true. There were some bad white people back then, but you know what, Ari? There were some really good white people too. Remember, when we talked about the American Civil War, a lot of whites lost their lives fighting to set African Americans free and to prevent the expansion of slavery and also to keep us together as a country. So, a lot of white people had to die for that. Now, I want to let you know that white people are not bad, African Americans are not bad. It's not that anyone's skin color makes them bad. It's just that, Ari, like I said, that's a good question, but you'll find bad people in any race. Doesn't matter what they are. You always find good people and you'll always find bad people. All history does is teach us what happened in the past. That's it. And history, because it's about people, it's going to have some good people and some bad people. So, learning about civil rights is not teaching you that white people were bad. It's just that some white people, not all white people, did some bad things. And unfortunately, it's a part of our history, and it's good for us to learn it so we don't repeat and do the same thing that they did.
I'm glad you said that, Ari. I just want to let you know I'm your friend, and my brother's your friend, and Adela Ray's your friend, and you know what? We know that you're a really good person, and your family's nice too. You invited us over for a Seder, and I learned something. All we do here is just learn. But I want to tell you, no matter what we learn, I'm still going to have you as a friend because you're a great guy and I like being around you, Ari. Yeah, you're still going to be friends. Okay, Calvin, that makes me feel better. Sometimes when I learn about African American history It makes me feel ashamed. But you know what? I'm not ashamed of who I am, and I'm not ashamed of my friends. But I do know this, that people, like Mr. Antonio said, were bad, and you can find bad people no matter what race of people you look at, and you can also find some good people too. So I really have nothing to be ashamed of because they're talking about the past, and we're not talking about the people now. So I have nothing to be ashamed of. I think I want to learn more, and I'm glad to be in this class.
Ari, I'm glad to have you as one of my students. Now, next time I see everyone, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different, and I just want you to know that it's been great having you guys here. So, I'll see you again next time.
Thank you for watching Calvin's Neighborhood. Now, if you'd like to see us live or online, just visit www.harveysampuppets.com. And thank you for watching. Hope to see you again real soon. Bye.